And now here's Donald Trump weighing in on this. Because obviously, being sworn in since last Monday, this is just a few days after he gets sworn in to become president. One of the biggest devastations currently on his record in this term. He's concerned about this. But he is directing this, and this is where, again, I get skeptical of this. He's saying that it's because the FAA has their DEI policy. So this guy, Nick Sorter, says, breaking, President Trump just eviscerated the FAA and blamed their incompetence on their DEI practices during the press briefing on the DC plane crash. Trump also called out pothole Pete Buttigieg, saying that he's a good line of BS. He has run the FAA right into the ground with this diversity. So, that could be a factor to this. It could be a factor, but it just seems like Trump and the Republicans are trying to use this as a political stunt, the same way Democrats, the same way all politicians really, take a horrific incident and try to politicize it and make it into a fight one against each other. Rather than doing a full investigation, unbiased, unpolitically, just full-on investigation and find out exactly what the hell happened. But here's what he said in the press conference on this.
Have more to say about that. I do want to point out that various articles that appeared prior to my entering office, and here's one. The FAA's diversity push includes focus on hiring people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities. That is amazing. And then it says FAA says people with severe disabilities are most underrepresented segment of the workforce, and they want them in, and they want.
So he's trying to make an argument because apparently there's some report that, the FAA, because they're inclusive policies, they're hiring a bunch of maniacs. Well, according to the report we just saw with the New York Post, they don't have people. They're understaffed. So what is it? Is it the horrible DEIs that they're hiring, or the fact they're understaffed? None of the two make sense. It's either they're understaffed and the guy who was running the whole air traffic show was crumbling under pressure because he's only one person, or there's much incompetence because they hire the wrong people. But according to the report, there wasn't anybody there. It was only one guy doing the job of many, which seems to be a case in a lot of instances. So that's why I don't really believe the statement that he's saying here.
Want them? They can be air traffic controllers. I don't think so. This was in January 14th, so that was a week before I entered office. They put a big push to put diversity into the FAA's program. Then another article, the Federal Aviation Administration, this was before I got to office, recently, second term. The FAA is actively recruiting workers who suffer severe intellectual disabilities, psychiatric problems, and other mental and physical conditions under a diversity and inclusion hiring initiative spelled out on the agency's website. Can you imagine? These are people that are, actually their lives are shortened because of the stress that they have. Brilliant people have to be in those positions, and their lives are actually shortened, very substantially shortened because of this.
But again, are they stressed because the DEI hires, because there's too many incompetent people? Or is it the fact that they're short-staffed and they're stressed because they have to do everything? It doesn't line up. It doesn't line up. That's why I'm confused. I'm not stating that DEI is not horrible when it comes to the FAA. It could be a factor of this. But according to that report, the guy was by himself. There was lack of people, that they didn't hire enough people. So one of the two doesn't make sense.
Stress where you have many, many planes coming into one target. And you need a very special talent and a very special genius to be able to do it. Targeted disabilities are those disabilities that the federal government, as a matter of policy, has identified for special emphasis in recruitment and hiring.
Also, it says a lot when he's talking about you need, good genius people to fly planes. As he and Elon Musk are championing for H-1B visas. As he's telling people, oh, America, you forget you guys. We're going to just get a bunch of illegal migrants, the ones that we're deporting. We're going to take them, find some good ones, and then put them into these positions. Instead of actually training Americans in qualified educational programs to do these jobs. Like it just seems it's so baffling. It's so baffling. These DEI programs, they're just so horrible, so horrible. But yet you don't want to hire actual Americans. You're looking towards H-1B visa programs. You're looking towards more insourcing of foreigners than actually trained, qualified Americans.
The FAA's website states they include hearing, vision, missing extremities, partial paralysis, complete paralysis, epilepsy, severe intellectual disability, psychiatric disability, and dwarfism all qualify for the position of a controller of airplanes pouring into our country, pouring into a little spot, a little dot on the map, a little runway.
I'm just very confused on how dwarfism, I guess because they can't, is their height the issue? That apparently they won't be able to see the window? Like, I'm very confused of this. I'm very confused of this. He's trying to make the case that this is a DEI problem. Obviously, this would be an opportunity hit job for Republicans to go after Democrats and go after that side and say, oh, it's the lefties that want the DEI. But again, look who you're talking about. This is coming from the guy who just prior to coming to office championed H-1B visas, saying that we need to import people into these positions, more and more people, instead of actually training qualified people. Yet he's trying to rail against DEI. But again, I'm not saying, I'm not defending DEI. We know how horrific it is. We know that it's wrecking more people. It's not actually diverse. It's not inclusive. It's actually divisive. The whole measure is divisive, but companies do it under the guise of BlackRock and Vanguard and State Street for the illusion to make it seem like they're very diverse and equal opportunist, to hide up the fact that these companies are neglectful. And that's what it seems like to me. And that's the whole point I'm making, is that it's company negligence. Why didn't they hire enough people at a busy airport? Why are the helicopters at a busy airport when there's no one monitoring them? Why was this happening? No one's answered those questions. No one's answered those questions. But here's where Mayor Pete Buttigieg, who was the transportation secretary under Biden, you remember how great he was, says despicable. As families grieve, Trump should be leading, not lying. We put safety first, drove down close calls, grew air traffic control. Well, according to that article, you didn't. According to that article, you let the corporations and their malfeasance, their negligence, cut back on so much of the labor force that one guy was responsible for everything. One person. You don't think that makes you a schizophrenic? You don't think that makes you paranoid and crazy? You're one person having control an entire airspace. And had zero commercial airline crashes, fatalities out of millions of flights on our watch. Yeah, but you had East Palestine. You had roads collapse. You had the bridge in Baltimore collapse under your watch. And you blamed it on racism. You blamed the Baltimore bridge collapse when the tugboat went through the bridge and the whole thing collapsed. You blamed it on racism. And we're going to show it to you. We're going to show it to you. President Trump now oversees the military and the FAA. One of the first acts was to fire and suspend some of the key personnel who helped keep our skies safe. Time for the president to show actual leadership and explain what he will do to prevent this from ever happening. So, it just seems like politicians are taking this opportunity to go at each other and neglecting the reality of this. That this was an accident done under the Democrats and Republicans and the corporations that sponsor these two parties, that sponsor the whole oligarchy, in their malfeasance, their neglect on the regular citizens. And that is why this happened. It's under the faults of Pete Buttigieg and Donald Trump. It's under the faults of the entire White House and the FAA and all the other players that deliberately go after and destroy the safety and the protocols to make sure we have secure airlines. They do it intentionally. And here they are when an incident happens, just playing politics. Oh, it's your fault. No, it's your fault. No, it's your fault. When they know that the FAA is so massively corrupted. Why do you think the FAA, that's supposed to monitor airplanes, that put on the regulations for airliners, allow Boeing to still sell them airplanes that malfunction on a regular basis? They're like the CDC. They're like every other regulatory agency. The people that are supposed to be protecting us away from, they're working for. The FAA is working for Boeing. CDC is working for the pharmaceutical industry. So, Mays points out, in March of 2023, Pete Buttigieg acknowledged that close calls and near collisions were out of control. After he just said to Trump, oh, I didn't have any problems in my administration. In 2023, that close calls and near collisions were out of control. And there's statistics backing this. Again, East Palestine, Ohio, that train derailment, that they did a controlled burn. Now all those substances, those chemicals that are lethal chemicals, are now entering the waters of that town, of that community. And they didn't do anything. Apparently, they didn't get much to fix the problem because many more happened in 2023 and 2024. And then, unfortunately, the crash last night. So here's what he said in that interview.
How concerned are you?
I'm very concerned. We watch these things very closely. If you look at the last decade or so, you would see between 10 and 20 times a year typically that this would happen. This year, we're on track to have more than 20, and even one is one that I would not like to see happen.
Yeah, we're projecting that there's going to happen periodically, but, I'm worried that one's a little too much, but it's just, things happen. Things happen under my watch. That's the transportation secretary. Close call's going to happen regardless. Trains get off track sometimes. Airplanes collide with a helicopter and kill people. There's nothing I can do. I hear that again. That's
How concerned
amazing.
are you?
I'm very concerned. We watch these things very closely. If you look at the last...
We watch these things very, very closely. Well, there's a difference between watching and actually doing something. Because the infrastructure in America is crumbling so badly that you didn't do anything. So yeah, you're going to be observing a bunch of crashes and collisions and close calls. You see a lot of them, but do you actually do anything to stop them or prevent them? No.
Decade or so, you would see between 10 and 20 times a year typically that this would happen. This year, we're on track.
10 or 20 times a year. You see this happening. They're projecting it's going to happen 10 to 20 times a year. It should be zero. It should be zero. The amount of money the United States generates from tax revenue and how advanced its resources are, it should be zero. It should be zero. Your infrastructure should be perfect, not a D- or an F or whatever grade they got now. This is a failure on people like him, on people like Mayor Pete, who you recall, when running for president in 2020, rigged the election in favor of him. He rigged the Iowa primary. He created an application to screw over the voters and then lied deliberately to the public that, oh, I must be the winner. I'm the winner of the Iowa caucus. I'm the winner of the Super Tuesday. Because I had some guy flip a coin and then he felt it up. And yeah, that's how democracy works. And Democrat voters look at this, and they try to defend and be sincere for Pete Buttigieg, and say, "Well, he was just a little incompetent." I don't know how someone can be that incompetent. You're the transportation secretary. Your entire career focuses on transportation. That's literally it. I don't know how people can be this incompetent. It seems more sinister than incompetent. Not just oopsie daisy, I made a mistake. It's like some sort of plot. Like he knew that's going to happen periodically. Oh, 10 and 20 times more. But this is where it gets even more hilarious. So when the Baltimore Bridge collapsed, ladies and gentlemen, the Baltimore Bridge that we saw, the tugboat going through the bridge fell straight down into the water because the boat was too high and the bridge was too low and everything was crumbling. And next thing you know, boom, it happened. Pete Buttigieg was called to the press room because being transportation secretary, he responded by calling it racist. He didn't investigate. He didn't say that the bridge needed repairs, that our infrastructure is crumbling, and then that boat was going to hit that bridge because the bridge was in such dire need of repair. No, he said it was all racist. That it was racist that the bridge collapsed when the boat hit it. And here's just proof of it.
If an underpass was constructed such that a bus carrying mostly black and Puerto Rican kids to a beach, or that would have been, in New York was designed too low for it to pass by, that obviously reflects racism that went into those design choices.
The design choices awfully affects racism. Not the design choices are crumbling and we need to invest that money into infrastructure and build America up. No, none of that. It's just the fact that someone built it in a racist way, and that boat that could have been carrying Puerto Rican or Mexican or whoever obviously was intended to collapse. Again, I don't know how people could say this guy is incompetent when clearly this guy is diabolically insane. Like, you want to talk about medically induced people? You want to talk about when Trump mentioned about the schizophrenic and all the people that... This is the guy. This is the guy. Let's hear this again. How
if an underpass was constructed such that a bus carrying mostly black and Puerto Rican kids to a beach, or that would have been, in New York was designed too low for it to pass by, that obviously reflects racism that went into those design choices. I don't think we have anything to lose by confronting that simple reality, and I think we have everything to gain by acknowledging it and then dealing with it, which is why the Reconnecting Communities, that $1 billion, is something we want to get to work right away.
So even there, when he says that the design choice was so racist, let's just say hypothetically he's onto something. Let's just pretend to give him the benefit of the doubt, even as absurd that is. He doesn't then go into, okay, we need to allocate some money to build better bridges. No, it's, hey, we got to send more money off to Ukraine. Hey, we got to take that money and send it off to Israel. Hey, we got to take that money away from American cities and towns and send it to more, criminal gangs. Because why fix bridges? Why fix infrastructure? Why make planes that function when we could be aiding the war criminals that want to seek and destroy? And what's even more ironic is this guy who's talking about racist bridge designs is working under Joe Biden. Joe Biden, if you want to make a claim about bridges being racist, holy crap. Do you need some education on Joe Biden? The Mr. I don't want my kids to be raised in a racial jungle. Mr. Black poor kids are just as smart as white kids. Hey, if you have a trouble deciding between me or Trump, then you ain't black. Holy crap. You want to talk about racism? You want to talk about real racism? Then look at Joe Biden. Look at the person you're working for. And yet you're making an assertion that the bridge collapse under your responsibility is because of racist builders. And that, folks, is exactly why America is what it is. That is why there's so much just negligence, just malfeasance, just an absolute absurdity. To the point that getting on a plane or getting anywhere in America is really risking your life. And I'm not saying that to just make it a hyperbole. I'm just saying, like, these are people responsible for these sectors. This is the guy who is responsible for transportation. And yet, a bridge collapsed under his watch. He blames it on racism. A train goes off rail in East Palestine, Ohio. Does nothing. And orders the train company to burn off the chemicals, inducing that small town that's now afflicted with those harsh chemicals. It's going into their tap water. It's going to their communities. Those kids are now going to suffer the same way Flint, Michigan has been poisoned with their drinking water. These are sinister people that don't give a damn. And they just make such an absurdity of the situation that, oh yeah, of course it's racism. Instead of actually being responsible and putting the money into good investment to making America not great again, but just maintaining America. That people can actually board a plane and not fear for their life. Because watching this and seeing about Boeing and watching all the other, I don't blame people for not going on a plane. I'd be fearful. If it's a Boeing plane, I know there's missing parts because of corporate negligence. Of course I'm not going to go on. God, it's the absurdity. And it just seems like no matter who you get, red or blue, either way, both sides are going to screw you.